Welcome to Brea Talks, an insider's look into topics that affect your experiences in the city of Brea. Whether you live, work, or play here, we're bringing you the information you need to better understand your city. So now, we invite you to listen in as Brea Talks.
Hello and welcome. I'm Liz Pharis, and today, Brea Talks Cultural Arts. With me from Brea's Community Services Department are Deputy Director Carrie Hernandez and Senior Management Analyst Jenn Colacion. Thank you both for taking the time to sit down and chat.
Yeah,
yes,
thank you.
Thank you. Woo woo.
This is, one of my favorite topics, so I'm excited to share it with you guys in the community. Let's start by having you tell us a bit about your careers and how you got involved in the arts. So Jenn, why don't you start?
Sure, I'm happy to. Yeah, so my experience is a little unique. I've been here in Brea for 10 years, going on 11. Prior to working here, I actually worked for a couple nonprofits in Orange County. I worked at the Segerstrom Center in Costa Mesa. I worked at the Wooden Floor in Santa Ana. And I was actually also a dancer in high school and growing up. And so when I was looking to join public service, I was drawn to Brea because of the robust programs that were already offered here. And so I wanted to make an impact in the arts as well. And so I've been really fortunate to grow in the Community Services Department. I'm currently the Senior Management Analyst. So I do budget coordination. I help with both of our commissions. I help oversee the Art and Public Places program under Carrie. And so I'm just really fortunate. I also do some of the recreation side and parks management side. So just really fortunate to do my career here in Brea, and I love it. So happy to be here with you guys.
I'm happy you're here. Carrie, you want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, so I've had 30 years of experience in the public sector. Really, it's been kind of a full circle for me for community services because my first job was in community services, working in youth sports, special events, that type thing in City of Buena Park. But since then, I've also worked for the City of Anaheim in community development, under economic development. But then coming to Brea here now for 24 years. Yes. In my current role, I oversee the cultural arts and also the human services, which also is our amazing Brea Senior Center, as well as our resource center, and then also overseeing our special events, which is all the fun parties that we get to plan around the city. But yeah, that more looking at it, generally, it's been the last 10 years overseeing the cultural arts, because I know we're talking about cultural arts.
Right.
But yeah, just been really excited and just kind of seeing how Brea has changed, really, in the last 24 years. Because my first job wasn't just in CS, community services.
Right. We worked together.
We worked together, Liz, in communications and marketing.
Yes.
So got to meet a lot of new people and just see how arts has really changed through the years, and just really looking forward to the future. So, yeah.
No, that's great. Well, thank you. At least now we get a little background. So talking about art, public art, we know Brea isn't the only city that has a vested interest in this, right? I mean, we see art nationwide, internationally, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, and I think cities use art to connect their communities. They use it as economic drivers. We see murals in Los Angeles that drive tourism to, come see the Kobe Bryant murals and things like that. When we see huge cities like Los Angeles, Seattle, France, and New York who are, have museums and they're tourist focused. And so I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but I think some of the early leaders thought, why can't something like that happen even in our small community? So the scale might be different, but the impact and the thought process is kind of the same when you think about it.
Yeah, and I think just to touch on that, it's like the arts in any city reflects a part of like the community, right? And it sets it apart from others. It's a conversation, and also too, it's how it's unique and different, right? Because art can be very just different as a whole, but in each city, how they take it on is very different. So yeah, that's kind of what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, and I know, marketing wise, when we talk about Brea, we really identify as a city of art, right? That Brea has really used that. But like, what's the history behind all that? How did that come about?
Well, I can kind of maybe talk a little bit about like the 24 years that I've been here, but the way I always talk the story about art is that it starts really, well, Jenn can talk about the APP program starting way before the other two, right, which is our theater, Performing Arts Center, as well as our gallery, which is the Visual Arts Center, right? So when this Civic and Cultural Center, was built and created and imagined, like, where people would come and do city business, they purposely put a theater and a gallery space in here, along with everything else.
So very intentional.
So very intentional, very purposeful, before Brea even grew what it is today, right? So we know that at the root of things, that our leaders back then really had a vision for that, in that investment, if you will, that uniqueness, right? So that was something that has been going on for 40 years plus. But I know Jenn can speak to the public art component, which has more of a deep history.
Yeah, and the Art in Public Places program has been around since 1975, and we really have to give a lot of credit to former city manager and former city council member Wayne Medine, who we're very fortunate to still have as a partner for our community. But he was one of those initial leaders who said, why can't something as broad as what the Europeans have in Italy or in France, why can't that happen here in Brea? And so he started creating these partnerships with developers to install three-dimensional sculpture on their site. And to this day we have nearly 200 art sculptures throughout town. It's our public outdoor gallery. We tout the theater, the gallery, and then we have this outdoor gallery that is publicly accessible to everyone 24/7. And I think that it really just set the stage for what Brea, could be. And again, to Carrie's point earlier, it's, we instilled a cultural arts commission. We have an art and public places advisory board. We have Breans who are, taking and have a vested interest in developing what the art means, what arts in Brea means to them. And so I think that, to your point about communities making their relationship with art so unique, it's so important to what, we do. And there's so much research about how arts plays such an impactful role in people's lives and students' lives, and it's why we're here. So
yeah, the current investment of it, right, and how we continue to support it, grow it,
right,
and just see how it is going to look different for our future generations.
Right, how it evolves. Why do you think? And we might have touched on this again, but why is it important for public agencies to invest in the arts?
Yeah, what I think is important for public agencies to invest is, well, in community services alone, I think we have a purpose of enhancing the quality of life. And so I think that there's a lot of parks, there's a lot of recreational amenities and opportunities for our residents to enjoy, but also I think the art part is important. And I think it's just another form of expression. Maybe it's not so much the physical activity or, other type of activities that we offer in a city, right? But I think it's also, it gives a channel and an outlet for others to express themselves. And I just think that, that's important because not everybody's the same, right? We try and offer a very diverse and different ways for people in all forms of expression, right. Whether that's visual, whether that's performing, right? Interpretation, starting a conversation, that type of thing.
Right, because we all know, art evokes different opinions in people, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I think we're just really lucky here in Brea that the commitment from our city council and from our community exists, that we can have this robust offering for anyone and everyone to experience within their community what interests them and what speaks to them, whether it's the sports, whether it's the arts, whether it's theater, and really particularly kids, giving them avenues to get a feel for everything that they might want to do in life. And so we are very unique in that way.
Yeah, if I can also add too, it's multi-generational. It's not for one segment of our community.
Absolutely.
It's for all ages, from our very youngsters to all the way to our older adults.
Right.
So it really has an opportunity for all ages to participate.
Okay, so right, we talked about there's many different programs, a lot of ways to participate, and that doesn't just happen organically, right? There was a planning and thought that goes into that. That's my guess, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, we have staff that work on each, we have the theater staff, we have the gallery staff, we have myself who oversees our public places program. We have a special events team that taps into a lot of the cultural elements, partnering with our sister city groups, things like that. And they all work so hard, not just to, do the same thing year in and year out, but really how do they elevate the experiences that have been offered for the past 40 to 50 years? How do they, level up, if you will, and continue to grow and to continue to reach new audiences? That actually goes into a lot of the work Carrie and I do with our Cultural Arts Commission. They've established these goals, and one of those is connecting the community through arts, but also elevating, Brea's art experiences and meeting people where they are. And where their interests are, diversity, all of that stuff comes into play. So we have a great team, and I don't know if, Carrie, you want to talk about that anymore, but...
Yeah. Well, I do want to touch about the Cultural Arts Commission, though. Like that's something it's a council appointed commission where, that in itself shows you how there's value, right? And how much the investment is. But we work through, the teams all work through that commission, to provide the different exhibitions, the different offerings at the theater, shows. They get a say in like kind of what we're going to be presenting. They are right there with us planning and making sure that we're adhering to a lot of the goals that are set, not only with city council, but also, the goals that the commission lays out for us to follow through when we're thinking about new or different things, that type of thing. So.
Okay. And I know I was fortunate enough to go through a process with you that you jumped into. What was it, last summer that it started? Mm-hmm. The Cultural Arts Master Plan. That was the first time Brea had ever done one. Let's talk about what was it for? What came out of it?
Yeah. Well, I think a master plan was something, I think, being in my position for over 10 years, it was something that I've always thought of, and finally getting the right, commission to kind of have a good conversation about supporting something like this, and also just having the city council, our Parks and Recreation, had also done an update of some type of master planning, or what we call needs assessment. Mm-hmm. So that was done. So that just made sense for the arts component, which never really had anything done before. So I think it was really important for us to really champion this effort, which we knew just didn't have to happen with just staff input, but the community, right? Mm-hmm. We wanted to engage all ages of the community to weigh in about really setting this visioning document, if you will, that with a third party to take a look a little bit unbiased, right? Mm-hmm. And we chose our Arts OC to work with us on this plan, who has worked with multiple municipalities and cities in Orange County with art programs and stuff like that. So they, working with them, kind of hand in hand on this effort, really we learned a lot about it, but that was kind of the intention, is to really let's start something and let's keep this going, right. What this would look like for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and I think, when you talk about the why, what was the purpose behind us doing it, a lot of times it's like we don't necessarily know what we don't know, right? Mm-hmm. We are so focused in on what Brea does, and we do it really, really well. And we even heard that from Arts OC, our consultant, who said, Brea does the arts really, really well. And it's actually an organization that others locally in Orange County or regionally look to establish their program. So I know I get contacted.
To hear that, right? Have someone else validate it.
Absolutely. Yes. I get contacted a lot about the Art and Public Places program, because there are communities that, are just looking to start those out. So, that was, like you said, Liz, very validating for us. But, we wanted to know, what do other communities do differently that we may not be considering? Mm-hmm. What, research is out there? What, resources are out there that we might be able to tap into to do our jobs a little bit differently? We also, to Carrie's point, we wanted to make sure the community engagement component was really strong. And so, we did a survey with them. We had community workshops with them where we invited the community to come out and tell us what is it that you're looking for in the arts? What do we need to know to better serve our community? So, that was a bit of the why as to why we kind of embarked on this effort. It was about 8 months long. Mm-hmm. It was presented to City Council in January. So we're really excited to have kind of this guiding document.
To go off of. Now, in terms of more about what came out of the effort. Were there some short-term goals, long-term goals?
Yeah, I think that we can talk about maybe the high points that were discussed. I know that a lot of the art in public places policy stuff was really identified, which I'll have Jenn kind of touch upon. But I think for the theater and gallery, I think it was across the board that offering new and very different types of experiences would be important, and also taking a look at just how we fare across other types of very similar venues in terms of programs and services that kind of came about. And I also think that it's also at some point, creating something in the North Orange County here, just to kind of give you an example, when the city of Yorba Linda put together their brand new cultural arts center for the first time, right? They heard early engagement. They wanted a cultural arts venue. Well, they wanted to put like a black box theater in there. Well, they actually contacted Chris Kataoga from our theater, who was our director, and said, hey, what do you think should be in here? What types of things should we be investing? So we were such a great resource. But I just think that there's some value in kind of strengthening the North Orange County cities to kind of share our cultural arts offerings so that we aren't duplicating any efforts, and rather kind of work together, as we see the kind of the next iteration of what's going to come out of the cultural arts master plan, but make sure that we're kind of sharing that regionally. Okay. So we can kind of really strengthen what we have, not kind of cannibalize it. So.
Yeah, and part of it too, it's not only how are we providing arts programs to residents here in Brea or the users, but how are we also supporting local artists, right? What opportunities are we either in our community or regionally at the county level? How are we supporting arts? That's something that Arts Orange County does. That's kind of part of their mission as well. But what opportunities do artists have to submit their work to be seen and viewed in the gallery? What opportunities do they have to be public sculptors here in town? What other theater venues might exist beyond just the Curtis Theater? So it's kind of what is our community doing to assess art in a holistic way, from the artist's perspective, the viewer's perspective, and all of that kind of combined.
Wow, no, that's great.
Mm-hmm. That's and then really on the art and public places side, like I said, that program's been around for since 1975, and some of those, what we might consider kind of shorter term goals that came out of the master plan. We have a whole long policy manual that goes into how the art and public places sculptures come to be. But, if you're not aware of how the program works, it's actually developer based. The city does not pay a dime for the public sculptures you see unless they are commissioned. I think we have 10 out of the nearly 200 that the city actually owns and has commissioned ourselves. But beyond that, they are all privately funded by new developers that come into town. They have a certain requirement. It's 1% of their total project's cost that gets put towards public sculpture. And so there were some recommendations that they made on kind of improving some of those aspects, raising the threshold on what the contribution levels might be. So those are kind of the things that we're going to be going back with our commission and our Public Places Advisory Committee to say, how do we want to move this project forward? We know products and materials are getting more expensive. The amount of art that could be installed for $60,000 10 years ago is not the same amount of art that can be installed now. So we're kind of having to assess that, and that all gets adopted by city policy. So that's our policymakers that kind of help lead that. But we're just kind of facilitating those discussions at the policy level. So yeah, some good stuff has come out of it for sure.
I mean, kind of an off-base question, but could we ever be full of public art? Can we run out of space?
Right, and that's something that Arts Orange County kind of posed to us, and we had a steering committee. I do want to mention that as part of this master plan effort, we had a steering committee. You were involved from the city side, Liz, and so we were appreciative to have your involvement. But that was a question that they posed to us. Is 200 art sculptures on, it feels like nearly every corner, is that enough? Might there be an opportunity, rather than having developers install three-dimensional sculpture? Is there murals? Do they put that 1% of money into a fund where we're now sponsoring cultural festivals instead? So it's kind of this shift in thinking about how do we think about public art? Where is our funding coming from? What is it being used for? What is our community looking for? So yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is something we kind of have to get to the bottom of. Right. And again, that's for our community to tell us. That's not for Carrie and I to decide. So.
And it's a nice problem to have, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're so lucky.
So, right. So, I mean, I feel like this community is so surrounded by art, whether they realize it or not. But how can someone get involved? Like if, I'm a resident and wants to know, hey, how can I be part of these cultural programs? What opportunities are there?
I think that you don't have to be an artist or a painter to really embrace the arts and want to be involved. I think you can just have a pure curiosity about it and a passion for it to want to learn. So I think, one of the things that comes to mind for me is just really volunteering. I mean, if that's something that you're interested in, you can become an usher at one of the theater shows that are being offered. They're always looking for ushers to help with their shows, and you actually get to stay and watch the show.
There you go, a little perk.
Yeah, so that's always something that's really really fun and that you can do, and that just helps pique curiosity and so forth. Also, volunteer your time at the gallery. They have their opening receptions. They're also looking for internships. If people are looking for internships, there's opportunities that way too to learn. So those types of things are always available. And of course our events, right, which bring the community together. People can volunteer their time to work at our events because we need definitely a lot of volunteers to pull that off. And those are just some ways for the volunteer side that could be done.
Yeah, another way that we can get involved is joining or submitting an application to join our Cultural Arts Commission or our Art and Public Places Advisory Committee. Both of those are appointed by our city council. We hold applications every couple of years. So typically after an election cycle happens where we get new council members, they will then appoint new commissioners. So you'll see those rotations come through. Your team, Liz, the communications and marketing team, will push that out. So on our social media, on our website.
Right, let people know.
That information will be out there. We actually just had a Cultural Arts Commission vacancy that was filled a couple weeks ago. So, but typically it happens after an election. Yeah, as part of the election cycle. So, but absolutely get your applications in if you're interested, because we love to have just the advocacy, right, Carrie? Just people, whether you're an artist or not, if you care about it and you're willing to advocate for it in your community, we are so happy to work with you. So
it is right here. You don't have to drive to LA.
Right.
You don't have to go to South County for art. It's right here.
Right. Great shows.
Yes.
Yep. Great gallery exhibits.
Yeah. Yes. It's so close.
And
so
I
accessible.
dare mention at affordable prices.
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, Brea residents, they get to go to the gallery for free.
For free.
Right.
Right.
I mean, so really, it's a great offering this community has, and love for them to realize it and take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, this has been so much fun talking to you both. I mean, I'm sure we could go on and on. It's all great information. I really enjoy the arts in Brea, and I visit the gallery. I go to the Curtis Theater, and I really hope and invite the community to do that as well. And even driving by an art piece, right? Maybe you drive by and don't even realize it's art in public places. But I know we do have stuff on our website, information on our website.
Yeah, and if you haven't been recently, we actually just updated the Art and Public Places interactive map. So that was a project that we worked on about a year or so ago. And just kind of a funny tidbit about that. So every spring, usually, so every third grader here in Brea has to do a research project on an Art and Public Places sculpture. And so typically, if they can't find information either at the library or in their school or on the website, I get the emails from the third graders, which is wonderful, or, their parents sometimes. So, but yeah, and what we wanted to do with the website is, we wanted a lot of the information, especially we thought of those third graders in particular in mind, to say, what do they need to know to complete their project? So we just did that. We tried to put a lot of information about the history of the artwork or the artist on the website. So if you haven't seen it, please check it out. Yeah.
That's great. And again, it's just having all that information that's everywhere, probably in our city documents, in a more public place that's accessible to everybody. Because, I hope the listeners now realize how much attention and purpose goes into providing arts in this community.
Yeah.
And they're fortunate, right? Like, we're all so lucky to have that. Well, thank you both for being here and for all that you do. I don't know if you have any last final thoughts.
I would just like to say I have a personal invitation for our residents that if they want to learn about arts, if you're very curious about it and know what we do, come to our Cultural Arts Commission meeting. It is a public meeting held on the second Wednesdays of every month. and those are the scheduled dates. We will have some cancellations here and there, but most part we get together on the second Wednesdays of the month.
In the council chambers?
In the council chambers, and it is open to the public. It's a public meeting.
Okay.
And so, people can come and speak during matters from the audience. And rather than hearing some of the challenges that we have in this community, it's nice to also maybe hear about something good in the community. And it would be a great forum for our commissioners to hear that. And it validates something for staff as well, for our team. So I just would invite, if anyone's ever interested, to come to those meetings. And I just think that in closing, I think cultural arts it's a source of, it's inspirational. It's in the times that we live in right now that it's just so challenging that it just sparks joy for people. And I think in anything we keep talking about conversation, there's always a good and a bad thing about art, but I think everyone can talk about it, right?
Right.
It's in the eyes of the beholder, seriously.
Provoke thought.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I just think that we are super proud to lead this effort and the amazing program, and that the city embraces, and that we hope to keep it going.
Yes.
And keep it alive.
Yep.
Well, great. Well, thank you both again
Thank
for
you
taking
guys so
time
much.
Thank you.
and doing this podcast. So that's it for this episode of Brea Talks. This episode and all episodes of Brea Talks can be heard wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on Brea TV and the City of Brea's YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening in as Brea Talks.